email, my city
I
email,
have,
county email.
Well, yeah.
We'll call the regular meeting in the New Ulm Economic Development Authority for Tuesday, December 13, 2016, 8 a.m. to order. First item on the agenda is roll call. We do have a quorum, so we'll go on to item number 2, the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll move them.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the minutes from November 15, 2016. Any more discussion on them? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 3 from the New Ulm Economic Development Authority Corporation regarding activities during the month of November 2016. Brian, got anything on it?
You should have my report. Brian Toll, Economic Development Corporation, New Ulm. I just highlight a couple of things, something that's really not mentioned in the report, but Kraft Foods expansion is proceeding very nicely, and they're looking to be 100% operational by about the end of March. And it'll be the only plant in North America that makes any Velveeta product. So all Velveeta products will be made here in New Ulm. Which is, I mean, it's a nice product and very stable. In the report, Randy Horsey of Horsey Graphics is considering a move to New Ulm. I don't know if any of you know them. And then our meat market prospect, Dan Stratman, is working on securing a facility here in New Ulm to open a meat market. And then finally, I'd just note that we've begun planning for the career fair, which will take place, or career expo, which will take place April 5th of 2017. And I'd take any questions.
Is this on here?
Anybody have any questions for Brian?
I just see the comment about the Target building. Is that, I mean, they're serious about maybe expanding that into warehouse? I mean,
No.
location would be close, but
My perception is that there's a desire to keep that as a retail facility. Thank you.
Thank you.
It
Right.
also is zoned for retail, it's not zoned for
Okay.
warehousing. Not that you can't change
Sure,
zoning, just
sure.
that
Okay.
the community plan would not be for that.
Okay.
No more questions, concerns?
I move to accept the report from the New Ulm Economic Development Corp.
I'll second it.
We got a motion and a second to accept the report. Any more discussions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 4 from the EDA staff regarding administrative activities during the month of November 2016. Heather.
Right, good morning. We'll run through the Section 8 report first. We had 101 vouchers on the program for the month of November. Payments to landlords exceeded disbursements from HUD by $1,200. Admin fee disbursements exceeded expenses by a little over $1,400. Note on pages 3 and 4 the unaudited balances, and note on page 5, 98 vouchers as of December 1st with a waiting list of 73. Can you hear me? All right. The drop in vouchers, we just had a lot of unexpected activity in November, so we have been issuing a few new vouchers, and we do have some in the works to lease up, so we're trying to get that number back up over 100 again.
Heather, I have a question on Section 8.
Yes.
Enlighten me again on, we have some people that we know move here from the Metro because they said they got Section 8 housing in New Ulm. So are these folks that just put their name on every Section 8 housing available and wait until somebody calls them? Or how do they?
Well, right now, our Section 8 waiting list is only open to people that qualify for our local preference, and to qualify for
Okay.
that, they have to either have a lease in their name, so they have to have a permanent residence in Brown County.
Okay,
So if they move here and get into a lease, they would qualify. But they can't just be staying with someone or couch hopping. That would
Okay.
not qualify. They have to have employment in Brown County, or either be attending school or have children in our school system. So you know, it's more than just coming down here and getting a voucher. They have to kind of establish themselves that they want to stay here.
You said that's a preferred list, so is there another list that they could potentially be on?
It's a waiting list preference, so our waiting list has a point system. If they don't qualify for that local preference, they cannot apply and go on our waiting list.
Okay,
So it's possible there are people that are relocating here because they've come down here and gotten a job. They would be able then
Sure,
to
sure.
apply and get a voucher. Does that answer your question?
I think so, but I'm at least aware of people that have said that they have moved to New Ulm because they were able to get Section 8, but they moved here, they claim, because they got Section 8. Not true?
I mean, if they had a job, they may have been able
No,
to.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
It's-
probably not
I
true.
mean, we make them prove, you know, we require proof that they
Okay.
qualify for that local preference to be placed on our waiting list,
So for January, could you bring some of that stuff and just kind of educate all of us, maybe on, we have a couple new board members, on what's eligibility for Section 8 and who gets it and,
Now, our public housing waiting list is open to anyone that's income eligible. We don't have
So maybe
that
that's where-
limit there.
they're using the wrong terms?
But, you know, we have to have a vacancy for them to get into public housing, and they, you know, would have to work their way up the waiting list
Okay,
for those units as well. It's not like they just come here and get right into one,
right, right.
so.
Maybe they're using the wrong terms and maybe they are working their way up the list too.
Yeah.
All
I mean,
right,
that
thank
takes
you.
a while, but. All right. If there's no further questions, we'll move on to public housing. As of November 30th, revenues have exceeded expenditures by just under $7,000 for the year. Broadway House is fully leased with 53 on the waiting list, and the family units are fully leased with 52 on the waiting list. We did go through a remote monitoring review to evaluate our compliance with federal labor standards requirements. So what they were reviewing was a few of our capital fund projects to make sure that we were following the laws. There were 2 findings, and we had to submit some additional information and corrective actions on what we'll do differently on future projects, and we did just receive a letter that our review has been closed. So that's a
Heather, could
relief
you
to have
explain
that over with.
What one of those findings might be so that they have an idea what,
One was we didn't have proper documentation of their payroll records. It wasn't on the right form. We had gotten copies of their paychecks, but it wasn't on the form that HUD wants it on. One employee had a union due deduction coming out of the paycheck, and so we needed documentation showing that that was the right amount being deducted. So we needed the union agreement in the file, and I didn't have that. So, you know, it was a learning process for me, and she said that although there were 2 findings, actually compared to other reviews she's done, we're doing really well. She said they typically do try to find something. So I guess that made me feel a little better.
well, and I think, you know, that just is an example of, we do the project, we get the documentation, but we actually have to get copies of their union contract. I
Wow.
mean, that's a lot of paperwork.
Right.
It seems, you know, it seems excessive to the normal person, but that's how HUD operates. You know, and it's unfortunate, but we had a couple of them, and
So then I just
We solved them.
contacted the employer, got the documentation, sent it to HUD. They verified that the deduction was correct, and then they were able to close that finding. So it was documentation, paperwork. Everyone was paid correctly according to the prevailing wage requirement. You know, there was nothing like that where they had to go back and pay an employee, where some housing authorities have had to do that. Have found they were paid lower than the prevailing wage, and the employers had to pay that employee then the additional amount. So they were minor. I'm glad to have it closed. I think it started in January, and we just got the letter in November that it was closed, so it was a long process. So glad to have that off my desk. If there's no further questions on public housing, we'll move on then to the EDA fund on page 10. Note cash assets of just over $461,000. Property rehabilitation loan program on page 11 of the report, available funds of just over $337,000. We still have an application pending that has been pending for a few months now. Do you know anything about that, Brian? What's the holdup there?
I remembered last month when I asked about it, but I don't remember what's going on right now.
Okay. Last time I talked to Dave Schnobrook, I think he was waiting for them to provide more information to us.
It's in their court. It's not, they're
Right.
not waiting on us.
Right. There was another application received and was denied. I believe the project didn't meet the criteria for our loan program. So. Moving on to the rental property fund on page 12, cash assets of $72,654. And then finishing up with the Garden Terrace report, currently 86 units leased with, oh, I just lost my page. There we go. 64 on the waiting list. They currently have 2 vacancies. They had 1 turnover last month, and they have received 1 move-out notice for January. Any questions on?
Anybody have any questions for Heather?
I'll move we accept the report.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to accept the report. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5A, consider resolution approving the revised public housing utility allowance schedules. Heather?
All right, the utility allowances for the public housing program are reviewed on an annual basis. And because we can't predict the future, the best we can do is look at the prior 12 months usage, what kind of weather we had, what kind of winter we had. And that all goes into a formula to determine the new utility allowance rates for the upcoming year. The rates for Broadway House have remained stable for several years now. The 1-bedroom will stay at $30, the 2-bedroom at $35. Broadway House tenants pay only their electric bill, and there's hot water heat, so they're not paying heat. That's basically just to run the lights, their refrigerator, their stove, that kind of thing. So those are fairly low. Then when you look at the family units, the tenants there pay all utilities, including garbage removal, which is included in the utility allowance. The rates there decreased slightly from last year. That's a combination of, we've had some turnovers. We might have tenants that just have lower usage. We could have had a mild winter compared to the year before. All of those things, like I say, go into this. So we're looking at, for the 2-bedroom family unit, going from 153 to 128, a 3-bedroom going from 182 to 165, and the 4-bedroom going from 231 to 193. So when we calculate the rent for the public housing program, the tenants pay 30% of their income toward their rent and utilities. So with the utility allowance going down, what that means is when they have their next review, the portion for rent they pay will go up a little bit. So between the rent and utilities, they're still paying 30%. It's just a little shift.
In the formula.
So the good news is our rent revenue will increase a little bit with these going down, so.
I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading, approving the revised public housing utility allowance effective March 1st, 2017.
I'll second it.
We got a motion and a second off the resolution. Waived reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none. Heather, please call the roll.
All right, Commissioner Gugesberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz.
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
Commissioner Wallers,
Yes.
and President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 5B, consider motion authorizing payment of the public housing program claims. Anything jump out there, Heather, that you need to know?
I'll just note there that we had 2 turnovers in our family units that were long-term tenants, so there was significant rehab in both units. So the claims were a little high this month. You can see the flooring bills included in there are really what made that bottom line jump up this month.
Okay, thank you. Entertain a motion?
I'd make the motion.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the claims. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 6A, consider resolution approving the payment of $268,475 to the City of New Ulm Capital Improvement Loan Land Acquisition Reserves. Heather?
We've talked about this in the past, that this would be coming up on the agenda. The City of New Ulm made a loan to the EDA in 2006 in the amount of $297,990 from the city's Capital Improvements Fund Land Acquisition Reserves. That was used to purchase the Eagle Division parcel from the school district to create the Milford Heights Affordable Housing Subdivision. You'll note the amount we're proposing to pay today is slightly lower than that. A few years ago, in 2014, the city sold some land up on Lee Avenue, and the proceeds from that sale were used to pay part of this loan back in the amount of $29,515. So the remaining balance owed is $268,475, and the EDA does have enough money to pay that loan in full at this time, but we are recommending, in talks with the finance director, to transfer $268,475 from the Garden Terrace Fund into the EDA fund to cover that loan payment. So the EDA fund doesn't take that hit.
This is the first step in trying to clear up our debt that the EDA owes, whether it's from the Milford Heights subdivision or any other area, so that we can then accumulate funds to do additional economic development, if that was the desire of the EDA board. So I think the plan is get current, capture some funds, do other things than just the housing aspect. So step number 1 is to make this payment. And this ties into, if you want to even call it, this is the EDA's part of potentially helping buy the additional 40 acres for an industrial park. So even though you're not buying it, you're helping to buy it.
I'll offer the resolution.
I'll second that.
We got a motion and a second to offer the resolution, waive the reading, approving paying off the loan. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Heather, please call the roll.
Commissioner Guggisberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz?
Yes.
Commissioner Wallers?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 6B, receive activity report from the Child Care Enhancement Program Coordinator. Heather?
This was added to the agenda at the request of Commissioner Schultz. Being the EDA did provide some of the matching funds for this grant, he thought you might be interested to see what they've been working on. So on June 14th, 2016, the EDA authorized a match for a Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, or a SMIF grant, in the amount of $1,752 to be used for daycare training and licensing in Brown County. The Sleepy Eye and Springfield EDAs also provided some of the matching funds in the amounts of $468 and $280 respectively. Those amounts were based on the size of the communities involved. The United Way has hired Rebecca Triplett as the Child Care Enhancement Program Coordinator. She was invited to attend a meeting, but she has another conflict on Tuesday morning, so that's not possible for her to be here. So I asked her to provide a written report summarizing her activities, and that was handed out this morning. You should all have a copy of that. something you can review, and if you have questions that you want me to bring back to her, I can do that and come back with answers in January.
I could add a little bit. I chair this committee. This is her 6-month report, so this is halfway through. Her first priority was to determine the need in each of the 3 cities. With that, we found Springfield having the most severe need. They really have little to no daycare availability and a lot of requests for daycare. So she started focusing some of her time over there initially. And secondly, so that they've started this Brown County Child Care Association to bring all the people that provide daycare needs, both the facilities and the home daycares together. That just recently got going and formalizing. That's one of the things that we found out is that people will join daycare, but they don't feel supported, so then they drop off after a year or two. So there's hope if they can keep the association going, where they can learn more about free training and what's available, and the meal reimbursements and all the little tiny things that go into daycare that I've learned in the last 6 months, that this group can then help each other. We've had, I think we just met last month, we had 5 daycares open in the county, 3 in New Ulm. There's a potential for a larger daycare center, looking at some of our particular loans for the city, potentially opening here in New Ulm. There's always some, there's about 90 licensed daycare homes in Brown County. There's every month there's some that drop out and some that join. So, but we were kind of going the wrong way there for a while, and that's why the EDA jumped on board with this. So she's a half-time person. It's really been a wonderful joint effort with all 3 EDAs getting involved. We have United Way jumping in and being the financial backing for this position. But Family Services is hosting her in an office down there. So, I mean, it's just a great collaborative effort. And this next 6 months, now that the needs have been figured out, we've looked at some media blitzes maybe in Springfield area, but also maybe here in New Ulm too, and doing some billboards and really getting the word out, and then doing some joint trainings. We can't go too big because you can only train so many people at one time. But I really like what she's doing. She's done a really nice job, and I'd hope that we could get her actually here in person so you could meet her, but it just doesn't work with her conflict. So I thought at halfway through we should get a report. I think maybe another 3 months we might ask for a 9-month report as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion?
We have 2 people sitting here that are retiring after this meeting, so on behalf of City
Retiring.
Council, thank you for your 6 years of service, right?
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for your time and efforts.
That's my job.
Oh, that's your job, sorry. I'm sitting next to him. No, go ahead.
Should we close this one out first, Heather?
I don't think so.
No?
I think
Is that-
it's done.
Yeah, but we need to make a motion on this.
We need a
Oh, I'm
motion on
sorry.
this last item.
That one, I'm sorry.
I'll make the motion then to receive that report.
I'll second it.
We got a motion, a second to receive the report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Now go ahead.
Now, Mayor.
Okay, Jason,
Yes, sir.
recognition award for service to the community by serving on the Economic Development Authority Commission as a member from January 2011 to December 2016.
All right. Thank you very much.
Peter, don't have to move too far.
I don't remember.
Everything is the same except it's exactly the same. January 2011 to December 2016.
Thank you.
And by the way, it's given on Lucky 13.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, with no more further business, meeting adjourned.